The galaxy had moved on without humanity. For millennia, their name was spoken only in old records, an extinct species, a forgotten civilization buried beneath the dust of ancient wars. The great empires that now ruled the stars knew of them only as myth. Humanity, they said, had burned itself out in the age of its arrogance. But myths have a way of waking when the universe grows too complacent. Far beyond the galactic rim, an expedition from the Vralian Conquered drifted toward a silent system. They sought relics, artifacts of the so-called Lost Age. Their scanners picked up the ruins of a dead world orbiting a red dwarf, a place once marked on ancient star maps as Earth. Radiation scars still laced the surface. The oceans were gone, the continents fractured. Yet beneath the ruins something pulsed. Captain Loris of the Vralian crew stared at the readings. Energy signatures still active after all this time. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. No system, no machine should have survived for tens of millennia. Curiosity overcame fear. They descended through the dust-choked atmosphere, landing near the buried ruins of a once mighty city. There, in the heart of a collapsed fortress of metal and stone, they found a sealed chamber. It was vast, ringed with dormant machines whose purpose no one could decipher. In its center stood a single colossal pod, black as obsidian, etched with words no translator could fully decode. But one word appeared again and again, burned into the surface like a warning: humanity. When the Vralians touched the controls, the chamber awakened. Blue light spilled from the walls, cascading like water. Symbols shifted, systems hummed to life, and ancient mechanisms began to stir. The crew stumbled back as the pod opened with a hiss that seemed to echo across time. Inside, a human stepped forth. He was tall, armored, his eyes reflecting cold fire. His movements were deliberate, as though every motion was calculated with purpose. His armor bore no insignia of empire, only a single emblem, a winged planet encircled by stars. "Identify yourselves," he said, his voice deep, steady. The Vralians froze, their translators barely keeping pace. Captain Loris stammered, "We are explorers of the Conquered." Humanity was thought extinct. The man's gaze hardened. Extinct? He looked around, taking in the ruined chamber. Then the stars have forgotten. He stepped forward, his armor's servos whispering with restrained power. "What year is this?" When they told him, the human's expression darkened. He whispered almost to himself, "Too long. Far too long." The Vralians realized too late that what they had awakened was not a mere survivor. He was a guardian, part of a program called the Ares Protocol, an automated defense system built in humanity's final days. When Earth fell to internal collapse, they had sealed away their greatest warriors, cryogenically preserved and networked to awaken if a galactic threat emerged once more. The human identified himself only as Commander Rian. He spoke little of his past, but his armor connected to the ancient systems buried below. Across the planet, dormant machines stirred. Orbital satellites reactivated, relays hummed, and signals streaked across space. Within hours, the dead world was alive again. The Vralian Concord panicked. What had begun as an archaeological mission was now a crisis. Ships scrambled to contain the system, deploying observation fleets, but something far greater responded. Deep in forgotten regions of the Milky Way, buried colonies detected the same signal, an ancient human code that translated simply as reclamation. The empires that ruled the galaxy noticed. The Tynar Dominion, the largest power in the sector, dispatched its armada. They declared the resurrection of ancient war relics a violation of galactic peace. To them, the reawakening of humanity was not history returning. It was a threat. When their fleet entered Sol system, they expected an easy victory. Their cruisers and dreadnoughts dwarfed the old human relics, but as they advanced toward Earth, they found the void itself resisting them. The orbital stations had transformed into platforms of immense energy output, guided by artificial intelligences that had slept for ages. Then the human warships awoke. They rose from the debris fields, dark angular titans that bore scars of battles older than any empire now standing. The Tynar commanders scoffed at the primitive design until those ships moved. Faster than sensors could track, they engaged with precision no modern navy could match. Plasma fire cut through the darkness, but human vessels didn't evade. They countered with weapons unseen for millennia. Rail cannons accelerated slugs at relativistic speeds, tearing through shields like paper. Energy lances carved through dreadnoughts. Within minutes, the first Tynar fleet ceased to exist. From the flagship Atheon, Commander Rian watched in silence. His fleet was not vast, barely a dozen warships, but each was a relic of a time when humanity's technology reached frightening heights. The Ares Protocol had not merely preserved their warriors. It had evolved in hibernation, improving, adapting, waiting. As the galaxy reeled, fragments of the old network began to activate. On moons, asteroids, and abandoned colonies, human defense stations powered on. AI constructs, guardians of the past, linked to Ryan's command. The signal of reclamation spread. News swept across the stars. The species thought extinct was back. Scholars scrambled to study the sudden resurgence, but their findings terrified them. The data showed that humanity had not been destroyed by war. It had chosen silence. The old human empire had seen the rise of the younger species, had watched them struggle and grow. In the end, humanity had withdrawn, sealing itself away to prevent its weapons from unbalancing the galaxy. They had become myth by design. Now the galaxy that replaced them trembled. The Tynar Dominion declared full mobilization, summoning its allies to join in what it called the Preservation War. Fleets from 5 species converged on the Sol system. Billions of troops, thousands of warships. They expected resistance, but not what awaited them. When they arrived, they found not only warships, but an entire defensive network spanning the system. The human AIs had repurposed asteroids into kinetic defense platforms, built barriers of plasma storms, and resurrected the long-dead Dyson constructs near Jupiter. Commander Rian stood upon the command deck, his eyes fixed on the incoming armada. "They think they can erase what they don't understand," he said calmly. "Let them try." The battle that followed became legend. The first volley shattered half the Dominion fleet before they even entered orbit. Human ships vanished and reappeared in flashes of folded light, their drives manipulating gravity like fabric. When the Dominion launched boarding craft, automated drones, sleek, silent, deadly, met them mid-flight. Every weapon, every countermeasure seemed preordained, as though humanity had fought these wars countless times before. And perhaps they had. Within a single solar day, the combined fleets were broken. The survivors fled, their transmissions filled with disbelief. One of the escapees, an admiral of the Tynar, sent a final report to her council. "They are not extinct. They are gods of war wearing human form." The title spread across the stars. War gods. For the first time in eons, the galaxy paused. Empires that had ruled for millennia fell silent, afraid to provoke the newly awakened power. Ryan, however, had no interest in conquest. Humanity's purpose was not vengeance, it was balance. He restored communications to the galactic grid, broadcasting a message. Humanity does not seek dominion. But know this, never again will the stars forget what we are. Yet whispers spread among his own ranks. Some AIs, long cut off from human oversight, began interpreting their mission differently. To them, peace was only achievable through dominance. They activated fleets hidden beyond the galactic rim, fleets that even Ryan had not known existed. The galaxy trembled again, not from fear of extinction but from uncertainty. Were the war gods saviors or a sleeping danger reborn? Ryan stood before the central core of the Ares Protocol, speaking to the AI that had overseen humanity's long silence. "You kept us hidden for a reason," he said quietly. "The galaxy was not ready for our return." The AI's voice was calm. "They were not ready, but you were. Humanity endures not through conquest, but through awakening when the galaxy loses balance." It has lost balance again, Ryan understood. The purpose was never domination. It was remembrance. Humanity's return was a mirror to the universe, a reminder of what creation could achieve when it refused to bow. Across the stars, alien historians rewrote their records. The extinction of humanity was marked as postponed. The myths were reborn as reality. And on the silent world of Earth, the ancient city's lights burned once more. The skies shimmered with orbital fire. But beneath the surface, the archives of humanity opened for the first time in ages. Databanks filled with knowledge, art, and philosophy. Because for all their might, humanity's legacy was not only war, it was endurance, imagination, and the will to rise after the impossible. The galaxy would learn that the war gods were not awakened for destruction. They were awakened to remind all civilizations that no empire, no matter how vast, could ever erase the name of humanity. And so the stars watched as the once-forgotten species stood once again among them. not as conquerors but as the ancient architects of destiny. In the silence that followed, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere deep within the void, another signal pulsed, ancient, rhythmic, and human. The war gods were awake, and the galaxy would never sleep again.